Into the Abyss, the mysterious disappearance of Michael Rockefeller. In the vast, untamed wilderness of New Guinea, a young man set out on a journey that would forever remain shrouded in mystery. His name was Michael Rockefeller, an heir to one of the most powerful families in America. Yet a man driven not by wealth, but by an insatiable thirst for adventure and discovery. We step into the abyss of his disappearance, unraveling the enigma that has haunted historians, anthropologists, and conspiracy theorists alike.
In 1960,
Michael Rockefeller, the adventurer. Michael Rockefeller was born into privilege, the son of Nelson Rockefeller, a future U.S. vice president. But unlike many heirs to great fortunes, Michael was not content with a life of luxury. He was drawn to anthropology, fascinated by cultures untouched by modern civilization. After graduating from Harvard University, Michael embarked on an expedition to New Guinea, a land of dense jungles, remote tribes, and ancient traditions. His mission? To study the Asmat people, a tribe known for their intricate wood carvings, spiritual rituals, and history of headhunting.
Michael Clark Rockefeller, at 23, was the most restless of Governor Nelson Rockefeller's 3 sons and 2 daughters. One of the heirs to the dynasty founded by his great-grandfather, John D. Rockefeller, Michael yearned to experience life at the other end of the social scale. This was no surprise. The unofficial Rockefeller family motto was, "To whom much is given, of him shall much be required." After graduating cum laude from Harvard University in March of 1961, Michael joined the Harvard Peabody expedition to New Guinea's Baliem Valley.
It's the desire to do something adventurous at a time when frontiers, in the real sense of the word, are disappearing. Michael Rockefeller.
I'd like to just say a word about Michael himself. He's a person who has always loved people and been loved by people. He had a tremendous enthusiasm and drive, loved life. I think it's fair to say that he was never happier than he has been. Out there for 6 months, Michael had one of the most exciting experiences of his life.
Mike Rockefeller was aboard a double-hulled canoe with a Dutch anthropologist called Rene Wassing.
During that trip, because of rough sea, something happened, and finally the whole catamaran was tipped over.
I told to Michael that I wouldn't dare. He said, well, I think I can make it.
Michael jumped off from that raft, and because very far, according to me, too far.
He was in sight of shore when he left the boat.
We're hopeful that Michael was able to get to the shore.
It was apparent that Michael had not reached shore.
Michael Rockefeller was presumed drowned in the sea.
No, he drowned and he was eaten by the sharks or the crocodiles.
Did he make it? There is no question about it. I don't doubt it. Well, Mike is an extremely strong swimmer.
The Dutch governor told Nelson that there was no cannibalism and no headhunting in his territory.
The skull, they are always after the skull.
Sorcery, magic, witchcraft, headhunting, cannibalism. These are the spiritual roots of this people.
And then what happened after that?
I'll turn that thing off and I'll tell you.
The Asmat region, a world unlike any other. The Asmat people lived in one of the most isolated regions on Earth, a place where the land and water blurred into a vast, swampy expanse. Their culture was deeply rooted in spiritual beliefs, where the balance between life and death was maintained through rituals, art, and warfare. Michael was captivated by their artistry, believing their work deserved recognition beyond the jungles of New Guinea. But his fascination would soon lead him into dangerous territory.
He then went down to the Asmat, which is the coastal area, where there's another civilization, much more advanced culturally, and where some of the most exciting carving wood sculpture is to be found, and that was the purpose of Michael's visit there, to collect for the Museum of Primitive Art.
The Asmat, along the Casuarina coast of Dutch New Guinea, is known locally as the Land of Lapping Death. A steaming mass of surging muddy rivers, rainforests, swamps, and tidal mudflats haunted by saltwater crocodiles. Throughout June and July, Michael traveled by native canoe, deep into the riverine wilderness of the Asmat, trading for carvings and photographing among the fierce headhunters with relative impunity. Michael developed a deep respect for these warrior artists, whose entire cosmology revolved around an endless cycle of payback, revenge, headhunting, ritual cannibalism.
In 1961, Michael Rockefeller returned to New Guinea, determined to collect Asmat art for the Museum of Primitive Art in New York. He traveled deep into the region, forging relationships with the Asmat people, documenting their customs, and acquiring their carvings. But on November 19, 1961, everything changed. That fateful day, Michael and Dutch anthropologist René Wassing were traveling along the Betsy River when their catamaran capsized. Stranded in the water, Michael made a bold decision. He would swim to shore, a distance of 12 miles, in search of help. That was the last time anyone saw him.
On the morning of November 18, 1961, Michael and René set off from the mission outpost at Agats. Their destination was the village of Amanamkai, 25 miles of open water down the coast, and several miles against the swift tides of the South Islanded River.
Strong monsoons sometimes sweep the heavy swell from the Arafura Sea into the estuary, making the crossing a rather hazardous undertaking in an Asmat dugout canoe.
We reached the mouth of the Southern Island River when there was running low tide. The stream was strong into the sea. I steered the catamaran into the sea until 2:15. Then happened something awful. René Wassing.
All right, you're live.
This is Port Moresby. I'm speaking here with John Ryan of the Australian Broadcasting Commission. John, I understand that you covered the disappearance of Michael Rockefeller in 1961.
Mike Rockefeller was aboard a double-hulled canoe with a Dutch anthropologist called René Wassing. They were trying to go up the Islandan River, the River of Islands, on the southwest coast of Dutch New Guinea. They wanted to do some trading, among other things, to gather some decorated human heads for the New York Museum of Primitive Art.
Rockefeller and his companion René Wassing set out on the catamaran for the village of Amanam Kai on the Kampong River. They were accompanied by Leo and Simon, two native men from Shuru. They were carrying a heavy load of supplies and gear, too heavy a load.
There's a tidal bore in the Islandan River. In fact, at periods of full moon, it sweeps down that river, water about 18 feet high.
The catamaran, burdened with the weight of their equipment, was slow to respond to the ups and downs required of a boat while traveling through really choppy waters.
The waves grew, and at a certain moment, a roller turned the catamaran upside down. It was no less than a disaster, although the vessel kept floating, and we used it as a raft. René Wassing.
They happened to strike one of the lower tidal bores. Their 18 horsepower outboard motor stopped. One of the two hulls filled with water, and they were swept out to sea. Nobody knows quite how far.
And during that trip, because of rough sea, you can hear all the details from Mr. Wassing, his companion. Something happened, and finally the whole catamaran was tipped over, and they were sitting on top of the canoes.
I told to Michael that I wouldn't dare because I would be exhausted. And he said, well, I think I can make it.
After more than 24 hours, sitting in cold and without any drink or food, after one night, the first night, Michael jumped off from that raft, and because very far, according to me too far, he saw a small coastline, and he told Wassing, I'm a good swimmer, I'll try it.
Now, while the Dutch Neptune bomber was setting out to search for the double-hulled canoe at sea, René Wassing and Michael Rockefeller were having an argument.
And I said, well, if you can make it, you just do it, I don't do it. And I don't take any responsibility for you.
Rockefeller very badly wanted to try to swim ashore. After all, the two men from Argots had made it, and he wanted to have a go.
He took one jerry can, which was still in one of the canoes underneath. He emptied it, and he had also his gasoline tank of the outboard motor. He bound both of them together with a belt.
He took off his belt, strapped them together, got into the water and started swimming ashore.
So he tied up these two jerry cans, the kind of floaters, around his waist, and he jumped from the raft and he started swimming.
Well, it was a very small chance to be picked up, and he had a bigger chance to come ashore.
Well, so far as people can make out, he had carried his glasses, his spectacles with him, but he had stripped down to his undershorts. And René Wassing saw him swimming away. The shore appeared to be 3 miles away, but he couldn't be quite sure. That was the last he saw of Michael Rockefeller.
At last, I saw only 3 little dots. Michael's head and the 2 other cans, and that is the last I saw of Michael Rockefeller. What happened to him, I don't know. René Wassing.
The search efforts. The Rockefeller family launched an extensive search, deploying ships, helicopters, and local guides to scour the region. But despite their efforts, no trace of Michael was found. The official report suggested he had drowned, but whispers of a darker fate began to emerge.
The most intensive land-air search in South Pacific history is drawing to a close, as hopes fade that the son of New York's Governor, Nelson Rockefeller, will be found alive. He swam for shore when his exploration craft capsized and left no clue to his fate, apart from an empty oil drum he used as a float. A companion who stayed behind with the overturned boat was rescued, and he tried to persuade young Michael to await search craft. The 23-year-old scion of one of America's great fortunes, he was a dedicated anthropologist and apparently was held in respect by the natives. 6,000 people and the facilities of 3 governments were pressed into the search, and when a week passed with only false clues to his whereabouts, hope was all but abandoned. Governor Rockefeller and Michael's twin sister, Mrs. Mary Strawbridge, prepared to return home, as chances that he had reached safety appeared remote. The prayers of all fathers are with the governor in his hour of trial.
Despite a massive air, land, and sea search, the efforts of the Dutch and Australian navies, hundreds of natives, and Governor Rockefeller himself, no trace of Michael was ever found. Rene Wassing, who stayed with the overturned canoe, was found and rescued by search aircraft on November 22nd.
I was very happy that they had found me, but the happiness was overshadowed by the knowing that Michael, my friend, probably was lost.
The disappearance of Michael Rockefeller remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. One of the most unsettling vanishings ever to obsess the nation. After 10 days, Governor Rockefeller accepted what seemed to be the unavoidable truth. Michael would never be seen again. The official
Theories and speculations. Theory number 1 was the attack by the Asmat tribe. One of the most chilling theories suggests that Michael reached the shore only to be captured and killed by the Asmat people. Some accounts claim that tribal elders admitted to his murder, citing revenge for past conflicts with Dutch colonial forces. Theory 2, drowning or accident. Others believe Michael never made it to shore, that exhaustion, strong currents, or predatory animals claimed his life before he could reach safety. Theory 3, foul play or murder. Some speculate that Michael was killed by outsiders, perhaps rival collectors or smugglers who saw him as a threat to their operation in the region. The challenges of the investigation. The rugged terrain of New Guinea made any investigation nearly impossible. The dense jungle, unpredictable waters, and secrecy of the Asmat people ensured that Michael's fate remained a mystery. And then there is the footage of the white tribesmen caught with the Asmat warriors greeting a journalist.
Months after Milt returned to New York, a shipment of film arrived from Malcolm Kirk in the Asmat. These extraordinary images Milt termed Malcolm Kirk Paydirt, including the traditional parade of Asmat war canoes sent out to greet all interlopers. This shot of a bearded, light-skinned Caucasian man paddling in a canoe full of naked Asmat warriors begs more questions than it answers. The resemblance to Michael Rockefeller, an accomplished canoeist who wore a beard, is obvious. Could it possibly be Michael, having been assimilated into the Asmat's headhunting cannibal culture over the preceding 7 years? Could it be a light-skinned or mixed-race Asmat, though Asmats do not wear beards? Milt left no clue in his notes or correspondence. Malcolm Kirk sent the footage back to New York undeveloped without viewing it. Milt did not see the footage until months later. It's possible neither of them noticed this brief shot, or if they did, they simply chose not to speculate about who it was. Unfortunately, the resolution of the original 16mm negative is insufficient for detailed forensic analysis. The possibility of it actually being Michael is, admittedly, exceedingly remote. But if it's not Michael, who is it? A feral Aussie? An anthropologist or missionary gone native? It's simply another layer of the onion which surrounds the mystery of the disappearance of Michael Rockefeller.
Rockefeller family's response, the legacy and impact. Michael's disappearance devastated his family. Nelson Rockefeller, despite his political stature, never found closure. The Rockefeller name became forever linked to one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries.
Slate 1, take 2. We're in the garden here of the Sacred Heart Mission House in Driehaus, Holland. I'm speaking with Father Cornelius van Kessel. When did you next hear something about Michael Rockefeller?
That was about 1 week after the last plane and the last helicopter and the last boat left. About 1 week after that, I heard some rumors in the neighboring barrios, because I was responsible from Otsenep or Madesep, and just the spot where they supposed that Michael should reach the shore.
You were actually living in the village?
I was living there for 2 years already. Sure,
yes.
Sure. And they were my good friends. So after 1 week, I heard some rumors, somebody telling about they found somebody, and so I was really anxious to know, to be informed a little bit more. So I started traveling just in that area and checking all that rumors, and it was just like a kind of puzzle. One rumor from that village and another rumor from that village, and they were rather closely connected. So I was suspicious, even about the possibility of a killing.
If he swam ashore, he might have reached the shore at a place that was not the best place for him.
What do you mean, hostile place?
Hostile, yes. Because of what happened a couple of years before. But there was a possibility that people seeing this man coming out of the sea, completely alone, no protection, very quiet, no body. Looking around, so this was a good chance to take revenge for what happened 2 years before.
Odds champs.
Very easy prey.
And the first thing was a small letter, a small note from a certain Dr. Dresser, a Protestant missionary from the team there in New Guinea. He wrote me a small letter. It is possible that Otsenep killed Michael Rockefeller.
So the waves that were there, plus the natural standing wave that you get between your two catamarans, apparently it started to sweep over into one of them, and before they could slow down, the one cat was full, and so they were sunk. They couldn't run. They couldn't do anything.
And then what happened after that?
Turn that thing off, and I'll tell you.
Well, as we just heard, Dr. Dresser didn't want to discuss what his views about the disappearance of Michael Rockefeller were. That's why he asked me to turn off the tape. He seems to think that discussing it any further would serve no useful purpose. Anyway, what he went on to say, his next words were, he was killed by the people of Otsenep.
We reach in our interview a more delicate point, and that is what I was asking also. Why, if it was true, and finally after more than 1 month of puzzling and contact to my neighboring confrère, who knows a lot also about that, so I found out in details also that it was really the truth that he was killed and eaten by that people of Otsenep.
And when I asked him how he knew about this, he said that the people of Don Gregory's village had heard from Otsenep itself that that Rockefeller had been killed and eaten. Dr. Dresser seems to believe it was a payback for the killing of several people by a Dutch patrol some years earlier.
When they found Michael, according to the story, alive, the majority was really opposed. They were against the killing.
And the chief, those Finn and Pep and Ayim, they were over there with their women fishing, looking for fish. And then that Rockefeller came drifting to the shore, and when they told me, Finn, he speared it with his fish spear. He speared Rockefeller with his fish spear. And then after that, they took him ashore and killed him.
There was a fight chief of that tribe along who...
Yeah, that's true.
Who was related to some tribesmen that had been killed in an unfortunate incident.
Yeah, 4 years ago.
4 years prior to that.
Prior to that...
they had been killed by some officials of the Dutch government in a confused situation.
Yeah, in a very sad incident, out of fear or whatsoever. Anyhow, that is very deplorable.
Milt also confirmed the identity of Michael's alleged killer, Ajam, or Ayim, with Gerard Deloy, producer of the Academy Award-winning documentary The Sky Above, The Mud Below. Deloy had been part of the film's expedition to the Asmat in 1959, shortly before Michael's first expedition.
I can make the identification easily. Ajam was my adopted tribal father, and I believe Ajam was Rockefeller's killer. Ajam was a strong man with a streak of violence, and we were very much aware of the still smoldering resentment of the tribe toward the Dutch over the recent killing of their clansmen. Gerard Deloy.
So the fight chief...
But that is what they told me also, the people. Because I was informed that when I asked them, why did you kill Rockefeller? And that was this a revenge, a payback for that.
They told you, frankly, that it was a payback.
They were afraid. They tried to cover the whole story. So you cannot be angry to that people. They have a kind of justice themselves also. Yeah. You cannot reason and talk in a pure juridical way with proofs and statements. And that's why I call it more or less a puzzle for me to find out the truth afterwards.
Michael's contributions to anthropology. Despite his tragic fate, Michael's work brought global attention to the Asmat people. His collection of Asmat carvings remains one of the most significant contributions to anthropological studies. Decades later, Michael's disappearance continues to captivate historians, filmmakers, and conspiracy theorists. His story is a reminder of the dangers of exploration, the mysteries that still exist in our world, and the thin line between discovery and tragedy. Michael Rockefeller stepped into the abyss, chasing a dream that few dared to follow. Whether he was lost to the river, taken by the jungle, or met a fate far more sinister, one truth remains: his story will never be forgotten. I hope you enjoyed looking at the disappearance in history of Michael Rockefeller. Have a good day, guys.